guys, welcome back. It's been a little while. It's actually my birthday today. I'm not going to tell you my exact age because then you'll know my exact date of birth, which is dangerous to put too much information on the internet. But I thought, as a result of it being my birthday, I'll share some wisdom. And I had this exchange on Twitter the other day that I thought is the perfect example of wisdom that might need shared because yeah, so many people did not get it whatsoever. It was crazy. So let's jump into it. So I saw this post from Uber Facts, which said, "What is sexist towards men that society just accepts?" And as you'd imagine, on a topic about sexism towards men, it attracted a lot of sexism towards men and a lot of anger from feminists and simps and all sorts of people that are a bit delusional. So let's jump into it and get into the actual facts of it. So I stated that we still have to pay for dates, even though women work full time now. The idea was originally to show off that you can provide for your stay-at-home wife, so why are we still paying, right? So the idea behind that is, it's sexist for men to be feeling like society says that they have to be traditional, whilst women have to not be traditional. So basically, women are saying, I'll have my cake and eat it. You have to be traditional. I do not have to be traditional in the slightest. I'm a modern woman. I'll do what I want, but you have to be a traditional man, and that's sexist. It's none of that screams equality at all, to be fair, and it kind of created like a bit of a really, really crazy debate. So the first thing that happened was there was a woman who said there's still a wage gap, and women risk their safety going on dates, men do not. Now, the first thing I would like to address is part two, because that's really simple, right? Women risk their safety going on dates, men do not. Firstly, men do risk their safety going on dates. That's sexist to begin with, right? And secondly, what do men or women risking their safety going on dates have to do with whoever paid? It's kind of like, it's just like a really horrific way to try and close down the conversation by hoping that you won't argue a point against it by using something horrible when it has nothing to do with the topic whatsoever. I mean, if I was on a date and I was attacked by a woman, I'm not going to think, well, thank God she paid. It's not going to register. It's completely insane. It's such a horrible way to create a strawman argument. Anyway, so obviously I said, as for your second point, tell it to Johnny Depp's missing finger, right? So let's stick to this one because this is probably the most interesting. So with regards to the wage gap, I pointed out that we live in the UK. It's illegal for a company to pay a woman less than a man for doing the same job. The wage gap hasn't existed except at a choice for a long time. Now, you might disagree with that, but just wait until the end, and then we'll come to the reason for why this is actually true. Right, somebody else has said same in the US. American women did chime in, though, and say that that's not the case, but it is. I checked it. Right, some guy saying the same thing here. Getting paid for doesn't make it any safer, so I don't know what safety has to do with paying. Now, what's crazy about this is, right, this woman's got 218 likes on this, so people agree with it, which is mad. Okay, so safety has to do with paying. It simply proves my point that men are expected to pay for sexist reasons. Yeah. As for your second point, tell the Johnny Depp's missing finger. Okay. Sure, let's jump back in here. Right, so I guess, rather than look for the tweets, I'll just explain what it is I'm talking about. So, what's basically happening here is, basically, women have always dated men who earn more money than them. Still to this day, women date men who earn more money than them. And regardless of how much money a woman earns, she chooses a man who earns more than her, like even if they're rich. It's always existed.
Hypergamy.
It's always been a thing. The action of marrying or forming a sexual relationship with a person of a superior sociological or educational background. Now, basically, this is what happens. And women are too embarrassed to admit that they go for men that earn more money. And that's kind of the main problem, is they shouldn't be embarrassed. They should just admit it. Because there's nothing wrong with looking for security and safety. I mean, in a relationship, the woman is the one who gets pregnant. If there's a divorce, then basically what's going to happen is that if she's with a guy who's earning bugger all money, she's going to get 20% of bugger all and be extremely poor. It's completely logical to date men who earn more money. And it's kind of like, for example, Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Always dates women in their 20s. And what's really happening there is, it's to do with your sexual marketplace value. So women, by the time that they are 30, have lost 90% of their eggs, so they're less likely to be able to have a baby. So men know this, and in order to have a healthy baby safely, they're attracted to women in their 20s because that's where their value is at the most, you see? Whereas men, basically, they're more attractive when they reach around 35 because their ability to make more money is much higher. And then what happens is, women, statistically, there is obviously the odd anomaly, but women statistically marry these men who earn more money because in the long term, they've got more security and safety and will be able to provide for their family. So basically, men and women are making choices to have healthy babies that will be provided for. And as a society, we're pretending that this isn't the case and trying to shame people for the choices that are basically installed into them that they have no choice over. They want healthy children that are provided for. It's completely insane. So, yeah, but it is sexist to expect a man to pay regardless. Because, like I said, you can't have basically your cake and eat it. You can't be like, well, I'm going to sleep with loads of men and not be a traditional woman, but you have to be an old-fashioned man. It makes no sense. Anyway, so basically, now I would probably like to add though, like I have no problem with paying for dates. If it makes a woman feel special, I'm more than happy to do it. I'm just pointing out the flaws there, and yeah, there's obviously some pretty big flaws there in the debate. But what's interesting is that nobody was actually willing to deal with the actual facts at all. Alright, so so Google found that they paid women more. Yeah, and generally, like I said, as women date men who earn more money statistically, regardless of how much money they earn, what's actually happening there is men are aware that women date up. So men are willing to date women who earn the same as them or less. Women, regardless of their salary, date men that earn more. So what happens is men are being forced to have to more aggressively apply for promotions. So therefore, if you're more aggressively applying for promotion for your survival, then basically you're more likely to get promoted. And that's driven by women's mating choices. So realistically, women are creating the gender pay gap as it's driven by their mating choices. So crazy. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to jump into there. Now, let's have a look at a video where there's a feminist giving her reasons for being a feminist, and she touches on some of these things. And I just think it's really interesting that none of it is true. There's not a single ounce of truth in any of her arguments whatsoever.
Why do you apply different standards for a man? And I would argue, maybe because I'm a man, but I would argue the standards you have for men are a lot higher than the standards you would have for a woman. Why do you apply different standards depending on the gender when arguably if you date both, it's actually about the person?
Yeah, like, no, that's a really good point. I think because arguably it's just easier to be a man, and so therefore you're like, well, it's easier for you to get a raise.
Why is it easier to be a man when men...
I mean, the gender pay gap just says it all. And
okay,
it's really
but there's also...
Again, gender pay gap doesn't exist except out of choice. Women could actually choose to as aggressively apply for promotions. They could choose not to apply for jobs that pay less. It's completely optional. It's not even like, it's been debunked so many times that it's a pointless argument.
Also a gap in like men commit suicide more.
Yeah,
men are dropping out of colleges more.
But that's toxic masculinity that men can't speak about.
So then why are we saying that there's like a patriarchy when men have it hard too? Like
Yeah,
you
just
just said women have it harder than men. But if women had it harder than men, like then why are more
I didn't
men...
say they had it harder. I just said it was easier to be a guy.
But okay, if it's easier to be a guy, then why do more men commit suicide?
Because they they feel because of toxic masculinity, which is perpetuated by both men and women, they feel like they have to be macho. And I don't subscribe to that at all. I'm very much like,
Well, could it be possible that men have a harder life than women?
yeah, of course it could be possible. Of course it could be.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that would like contradict what you said earlier.
Well, this is it. It's not
Yeah.
black and white. It's not right or
Okay,
wrong.
yeah.
It's gray area, baby.
Yeah.
So everything is, there's no
Like,
very solid. So yeah, that's, and even the whole rule and exception, there's all, it's not one size fits all. It's really not. Where there is, that's it. There are some men who thrive and succeed because they're a man, because life is easy. Therefore, I'd be like, I would expect you.
okay,
to have
I'm gonna
good
give you an
income.
example. My dad's the top half a percentage of earners. Okay, he's the white man, right? But here's the thing. He worked 80 hours a week my whole life. I didn't get to see him.
Yeah.
How is that like the patriarchy when my dad put in 80 hours every week his whole life,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
from the time I was like
Yeah.
a child, right? Missed a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
shit. Like he earned that.
Yeah.
And I'm never gonna say that's like
No.
the patriarchy.
Well, the only way we can
But now
yeah.
he's a white male CEO.
Yeah.
Right. So is that the patriarchy, or
Well-
did women not choose to do that?
Well, that's the only way we could argue is the only definitive answer
Yeah.
you could have is if you had a exact female replica to be like, she likely would not get where he is. That's the only way we could argue it.
Right,
But
so-
it
so
doesn't,
then why-
it doesn't
so then-
take away
so-
from his efforts. It doesn't take away from
so
that.
then why do we talk about it at all? If you
The problem is, though, right, is basically, so there is a gender pay gap that's driven by the fact that men know that they have to earn more than women in order to basically get married and all that stuff. And it's complete and utter madness. It's, as you can see, there hasn't actually been anything yet that's been said that's been true. And yeah, it's wild.
can't, if you have no idea why there's a pay gap.
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
like is it possible that it's the industries that women pick? Because if you look
Yeah,
at
no, of
countries
course.
that have more choice, so if you go to like the most egalitarian countries, there's more of a pay gap rather than less, because women choose jobs with people.
Wherever you go, bring all your work with you.
And
Yeah,
men
yeah,
choose
yeah.
jobs with objects. So like I'm from a family of 10. All the boys are engineers. None of the girls are engineers. Like, is it possible it's a biological difference rather than a patriarchy?
No. Yeah, no, I think the pay gap is more like within. So I don't know if you saw on International Women's Day, they had a bot that literally showed you the pay gap within organizations. So obviously, women will tend to go for things like being a nurse, being a teacher,
Yeah.
and they pay a lot less than being a
Yes,
financer.
correct.
And
Yes,
XYZ.
yes.
But the pay gap then exists in so a lot of things where there's a lot of male actors who will be like, I will not sign on to this contract unless I know my female counterparts are being paid the same. And so I think the pay gap then comes and
Well, it's also the trait. It's
yeah.
also the trait like disagreeableness. So as women, like we're naturally more agreeable.
100%.
So I'm terrible at negotiating. I just want to make everyone happy, and I just want to be like, yeah, I'll do whatever for
Yeah.
nothing. But that's like men are more disagreeable if you look at the agreeability scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, like why do we just assume patriarchy when you don't know
Yeah.
if it's because of different personality traits and gender differences?
No, and gender, they are so real. So in my studies, it showed that so men are more likely to go for, so let's say there's a job and a woman is more likely to look at a job specification and go, oh, but she's more likely to say no to herself. And she's more likely to go, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough.
Yeah.
Whereas a man is more likely to actually inflate their ability and be like, I'm going to go for that.
That's not really a gender thing. That's more of an IQ thing. People that are intelligent, they have more doubts and therefore are less confident. And statistically, people that are a little bit stupider basically are a bit more confident, which is why you end up with prime ministers that are absolute morons and so on. It's not necessarily gender-based, but yeah.
And it
Right.
actually reflects in relationships where a man is more likely to actually shoot above and be like, yeah. I can.
Yes.
So it's a reason we see a lot of less attractive men with more attractive women. The women are more likely to be like I.
No. So, because statistically women value money over looks or anything else, because that's what creates, like, basically stability and a secure family, that's why less attractive men often end up with women. But in reality, basically, attractive men often end up with less attractive women because, well, they're dating women that look like say there's a guy who's a 9. He's dating a woman who's a 9 wearing makeup, and then in the morning she's like a 7. Or with Instagram and there being so many simps and stuff these days, what also happens is, like, I guess an easier way to explain it is, like, on Tinder, men swipe right 60% of the time. Women swipe right 5% of the time. So a tiny minority of men are sleeping with all the women. So they're sleeping with women who are as attractive as they are, and women who are also a lot less attractive than they are as well. And then women tend to think that, like, that's where their level is, when in reality that man's using them, and then basically they spend years and years waiting for the right man to come along based on that guy, when that wasn't their marketplace value. Their marketplace value was the guys that want to be with them, but they don't realize that. But, yeah.
I spent a lot of my life being like, I'm a 4 out of 10. I'm probably about a 7, but I spent a lot of my life dating men, and people would be like, Amy, that guy is not in your league. Like, why do you not? And they're like, they're definitely, like, you know, out, like, you're out of their league. And it's actually, yeah, there's a real gender difference. And is that biological? Is it social? We don't know.
Well,
We don't know.
right there, that's because men and women value different things. Men value looks more. Women don't value looks as much. They value things like social status, like a blue check mark. A blue, and this is,
Yeah.
I've dated a guy with a blue check mark, right? Like, we like social status.
Yeah. Like, we'd be lying if we said we didn't care and it didn't matter.
or whatever
Yeah.
it is. Like, it could be height, right? It could be, you know, maybe he's not as good looking facially, but he's
He
tall.
makes money. Like, yeah.
Or he makes money.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why we see there's a gap in that.
Yeah.
But we don't scream patriarchy for, like, men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
But then we don't know. That's it. We don't know. Is it because of? So you've got the biopsychosocial approach, and which is what I tend to subscribe to, because that's it. It's not easy to be like, oh, it's just biology, or it's just sociology, or it's just your personal.
but my question is, like,
yeah.
I just don't even understand, like, in this day and age, how we are fighting the patriarchy. Like, what more can they do? I can do any job I want. Like, nothing has ever stopped me from doing anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
like, I don't even know,
it's rough.
like, I don't even know what I need feminism for now. Like,
Yeah.
I can't think of one
Okay.
thing.
I have a question going back to what you said, and I think it's valid, but I want to.
This is one of the best pitches that I've ever
adverts.
heard.
I don't think you're going to be surprised that the size of the
give you a scenario. So you said originally that the reason you arguably apply a higher standard to men is because you felt life was easier for them. So it's easy. You should expect more from them, or they have advantages, right? More so than women, right? So my question then is: would you apply a higher standard to a white woman over, for example, a black male?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah, I would.
Really? So you would expect the white woman to earn a certain amount, to be taller than you, to make you feel protected, and to be able to provide for you more so than if you were getting to know a black male?
Then it's the intersection between race and gender, but that's it. As a westernized white woman, I'm well aware of my privilege. And it's like, I know that, like, it depends on, well, that's it. It depends on, it's tough. It's
Because
like,
I'll be honest, like, I think women just always apply a higher standard to men than women because they're men regardless of what race they are.
so say, like, we go for a job interview and it's
Wait, you're non-binary. Me and
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Who you dating?
That's it. It really, like,
Who you picking?
yeah, exactly.
He probably makes more money than me.
Yeah, but then but then being a female, I'd probably be like, is money my most important, or is it emotional connection and how funny you are? Like,
Okay, one thing that you said was true, which is women do like funny men. That basically does help you have sex, right? But women don't go for, like, feelings over money. Statistically, it's always been proven that that's not the case. And also, I mean, another really good example of that is the richer a person is, the more likely they are to be a psychopath. And on top of that, criminals, like convicts in jail and stuff, or people with criminal records, have 30% more children than people that don't have criminal records. Which just goes to show that kindness isn't what people are looking for. They're looking for, criminals, that's obviously the whole bad boy thing, but also yeah, wealth and general things like that. So statistically, none of what this person has said is actually accurate as to what actually people want.
It would depend on what. As a woman, I think I would. Oh, I don't know. That's it. Would I, well, as a woman that doesn't necessarily want kids anytime soon and is quite financially independent, I probably wouldn't be like, money probably wouldn't be my priority. So then I'd be like, well, physical attractive would come into it, but then funny,
So me,
compassion.
okay,
So it's really, oh no, but that's it. It's really, no, but it's really hard. It's really hard to be like, no, but it's really hard to be like, is it just money? Is it protection? Because I'm also quite scrappy, so I can hold my own as well. I don't want a man to protect me because I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll fight. Let's
Do you
go.
do you think you could fight me? Why do you?
And again, just saying, I don't want a man to protect me. So this is kind of like the main wisdom that I wanted to kind of show here, which should be common sense, but it's not common sense to everybody, because people do not tell the truth about these things whatsoever. But basically, if you're young and you're dating and you don't have a great job, you don't have a car, you can't drive or whatever, don't waste your time dating, because the person's not going to stick around. Somebody's going to come along with money and a car that's basically going to be a better option. So you have to focus on yourself first, get yourself as educated as possible, because basically women look for these kind of like success markers, if not success. So get yourself educated, get the good job, get a car, and so on. And then basically, then you're in a position to really kind of start dating and stuff. But in general, you kind of have to point out these things, that money is the main driving force. Money, making women feel safe, secure. Obviously walk them home and stuff. Like put your arm around them in the bar when creepy guys are coming up, and just make sure they feel safe and stuff. And ignore all the nonsense people say. And I think one of the main problems that I have with basically feminists speaking about the gender pay gap and stuff, which has obviously been debunked, is it doesn't benefit women to have them out talking about things that aren't real and generally just annoying the public, because like women have a different sexual marketplace value, and that is basically how long they can have healthy children for. And if they're wasting their youth basically spouting off nonsense that is going to repulse everybody, man and woman, it's not helping women whatsoever in the slightest. There's plenty of women in the world that actually could use help. Like there's like horrible things that happen in Asian countries due to Westerners and stuff. There's human trafficking and stuff. There's a lot of things that are real that could be focused on, but instead there seems to be this like huge focus on division through things that aren't true, that have been debunked many times over and over again, and it's crazy. And there's like just these simple truths are just like really important for young people to learn, because what's going to happen is, if we keep pretending that women aren't interested in money, they're never going to be able to find the people that they're interested in. And let's say, for example, we made it 50-50, that each time a woman got promoted, a man would get promoted as well. And what happens is, the more women get promoted, the less likely they are to find the kind of man that they're looking for. Because it's physically, statistically impossible for most women to get the promotions and get the man that they're looking for with the money. You can't have both. Like, it's completely impossible. Like, yeah, there is a minority of women who can have their cake and eat it, and have the man with the money and get the promotions. And because there's obviously a lot of incredibly talented, like super intelligent women that will go out there and do that. But you can't have 50% of the women in line with the men, and the majority of women have the money and the traditional structure that they're looking for, whilst not being traditional themselves. It's a statistical impossibility. That's why the whole thing is completely flawed and nonsense, especially when you take into account that men are having to more aggressively apply for the promotions in order to be chosen. It's women's choices. It's completely mad. So, there we go. So, I guess there's probably going to be a lot of people in the comments screaming, toxic masculinity, you're a bigot, yada yada yada. And so I thought it'd be nice to end the video by giving an example of what average men actually think masculinity is. because people like to pretend it's something else. And again, this is more lies that we need to debunk, because it tends to be the simps and the male feminists and stuff that are the ones that are like really slimy and stuff, that aren't masculine. They're the ones that you can't really trust. They're the ones that kind of grow up to be what's the word I'm looking for? Can't remember. But oh god, what is that word? Regardless, we'll just jump into the video.
A false notion of manliness leads boys astray. True manliness is humane. It says, "We who are strong are to bear the infirmities of the weak." Its work is to protect those who cannot defend themselves, to stand between the tyrant and the slave, the oppressor and his victim. It is identical in all times with the spirit of chivalry, which led the good knights to wander in search of robbers, giants, and tyrannical lords, those who oppressed the poor and robbed helpless women and orphans of their rights. There are no tyrant barons now, but the spirit of tyranny and cruelty is still to be found. The good knight today is he who provides help for the blind, the deaf and dumb, the insane, who defends animals from being cruelly treated, rescues little children from bad usage, and seeks to give working women their rights. He protects all these sufferers from that false manliness which is brutal to the weak. The true knights today are those who organize to prevent cruelty or to enforce laws against those who, for a little gain, make men drunkards. The giants and dragons today are those cruelties and brutalities which use their power to ill-treat those who are at their mercy. True manliness is tender and loving. False manliness, cold and hard, cynical and contemptuous. The bravest and most heroic souls are usually the most loving. Garibaldi, Kossuth, Mazzini, the heroes of our times. Luther, who never feared the face of man. Gustavus Adolphus and William of Orange are examples of this union of courage and tenderness. Bold as lions in the defense of the right, such men in their homes and their private life have a womanly gentleness. False manliness is unfeeling, with no kindly sympathies, rude and rough and overbearing. True manliness is temperate. It is moderate. It exercises self-control. It is capable of self-denial and renunciation. False manliness is self-willed and self-indulgent.